Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're starting on a new custom project, and I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I've been talking up the frame arms line quite a bit recently, and so I thought it's time to do a frame arms project, and this is going to work really well with another project that's going to kind of tie into this. You guys will see more about that later, but for now, let's go ahead and get into it. I'll talk a little bit about what we're going to work with here to get us started off, and then we'll get right into it. So we've got three main kits that I'm going to be using here for this: the frame arm architect frame, which obviously you need, and then we've got the Revenant Eye armor parts set version FME and the Griffin armor parts version FME. So I'm going to start off the video just kind of by doing a quick sort of unboxing of these kits, just so you guys can see what we're going to be working with for our core materials here, and then we'll get into the building process. Right, so if you guys are not familiar with the frame arms line, typically the architect frame, which is what we have here, is included in the kit. So you'll buy a frame arms kit, it'll have this frame inside there, and then it'll have all the other parts to basically make something like that. But you can also buy everything separately. So this is just the frame on its own. You can get it in many different colors. This is just the standard gray, and this is the renewal version, so it'll be slightly different depending on which version that you get. The renewal version has improvements in the hip and arm sections, which is very nice for just added stability to the frame, which is good. But obviously the point of this frame is just to give you a very simple basic frame with hard points all over the place that you can customize this with different armor pieces and stuff from the frame arms line. Also the MSG modeling support goods line of option parts and weapons and armor and everything you can use with these as well, and it's supposed to be just very customizable. Basically what Bandai is doing with the 30 minutes missions line is their take on what Kotobukiya had been doing with the frame arms line years and years before, essentially. So inside this little box here, we've just got all of our frame parts, nothing really too interesting in particular with this. It's all going to be molded here in three different colors of gray, actually. Got like a dark gray, a medium gray, and a lighter gray for some of those. And then we do also have a couple of clear blue parts in here as well. So simple enough, that's going to be our frame. We will most likely be using all of that. Probably not the head though, so the head will probably be left over. Now, as for the other two kits, these might be a little bit more confusing for you guys. What is version FME? So the FME stands for 4 Modelers Edition, and that's why it's all white like this. It's kind of made with the idea that you're gonna be painting it. The other thing with this set is that it's the armor parts only, so not the frame. So that's why we need the frame, because this is only armor parts, and that's what this one is as well. There are some FME kits where it's the full kit and it includes the frame and the armor, but neither of these are that. So these are just only armor parts. So the Griffin is available as its own, totally separate kit, and it's all kind of green, and that will include the frame and everything. You can get that on its own. This is just all the armor parts, and likewise, this is just all the armor parts for making the Revenant Eye. And so what I want to do with this project is basically combine parts, using parts from both of these kits for making one single unit. So let's just take a quick peek in here to the parts here for the Revenant Eye sets. Like I said, it's all going to be in white. It's actually like a slightly off-white, which is nicer for just being able to see the details. If it was like a really bright white, that wouldn't be all that useful. And we have some light gray parts in there as well, a little bit of like a clear part in there for the head and the instructions, and that's basically going to be about it for that. With the Griffin parts here, it's basically just going to be the same. We've just got all of our parts there in different shades of off-white and light gray, and the instruction manual. And even the instruction manual for these is quite simple. They're not in color at all. They're just black and white, no pictures or anything. So even the manuals are kind of FME for Modelers Edition, in that just there's nothing here that's very like showy. It's all business with these kits. It shows it for how to build it like as the Griffin parts, because that's what it's for, but obviously you can customize the parts and use them in different ways, and that's what we're going to be having fun with in this particular project. So for now, give me a little bit of time here to get some of this stuff built up, and then we can have some fun with swapping it around and changing stuff around and kind of coming up with our design for this. I have a basic idea at the moment of kind of what I'm going for with this, but let me go ahead and start putting some stuff together, and then we'll see what we're working with. Okay, so first up here, I got the architect frame all put together. Now, I believe in the past I've done like a full review video for the architect frame, as much as there is to review about it. But like I said, it's just got a bunch of hard points all over the place. The little bit of like armor pieces that you do have on here is just kind of for the aesthetic, are removable, and there's just more hard points there. Same thing for like these bits here on the chest. You can pop that part off there, and there's a hard point there as well. The only thing that is not like a part of an actual frame is just the head. The head is, I mean, just its own thing on its own. And I said before that I'm not planning on using that, but I may actually, because the two kits that we have to work with here both have their own head included, the Revenant Eye and the Griffin. I don't particularly like either of those heads, so what I might do is use this one, or again we'll use some sort of combination of the parts. I'm not sure yet, but anyway, it's got some nice bits of articulation, and here is what we're going to work on next. So these are all the parts of all the Revenant Eye parts, which I thought would be a better sort of base to start off with. So I've got them separated out for where they go on the kit and everything. So basically I'm just going to be building this as the Revenant Eye first, and then I'll mix and match parts out as far as the Griffin parts go, which parts of those that I want to use. Just because with the Revenant Eye, just because the design of the armor for the Revenant Eye leaves like a lot of like the frame still exposed up here, and for the Griffin you're basically like replacing the entire legs, and I do want to keep like this frame for the legs. Anyway, here it is once it's transformed into the Revenant Eye. Now there is some really cool aspects of this, and so here's where I can start to make some decisions about which parts I want to keep on the frame as like the main unit as they are. So like for example here, this lower leg section here, probably just going to keep that mostly as it is. There might be some small changes to that. The roller skate feet though, not that huge of a fan, and I think these might actually look pretty cool on a backpack if they're made to look like incoms, so that it has like some sort of like an incom rack system, something like that. So I'm not sure about those, may end up using those for something different, but not the feet. I'll end up swapping the feet. Forearm parts are just a pretty basic, like kind of big blocky forearms, which I think look pretty good as they are. Those will probably stay. The chest, I'm not sure. The head, I'm not sure. Around here on the back, we have this big radome disc, which is also pretty cool, in these big radar fins here as well. Those can definitely be put to use, I think. The head, I don't know. The head is interesting. It has this cool gimmick that you can slide that part up, the visor there on the face, and it's kind of hard to tell because it's clear, but it like has lines in it to make it kind of very skull looking, which is kind of interesting, though like I said, not exactly sure about which head, or I guess which full head I might use, or which parts of head I might use as the base for a head. But for right now we're just testing things out. It does also have these parts here for the hands, so you can swap out the hands for these parts here, which I think will obviously make some very cool like railgun style cannon weapons, something off the back, something like that. I think we can imagine pretty easily. So there's a very good chance that these will end up being used as well. But so that is all the parts for this kit. Now I can go ahead and start putting the parts together for the Griffin, and then we can kind of see which parts are going to be mixed and matched and all that. So let me go ahead and continue here, and we'll check back in a minute. All right, so here is what I've got going so far now that I've got some more of the parts built up. Basically, we got the Griffin parts here for the chest, the hip section, the shoulders, and then the Revenant Eye parts for the forearms and the legs, and the feet are also part of the Griffin feet. Well, they're like the Griffin feet minus the Griffin has like some like claw parts that go out the front. So we got a pretty good mix and match going on so far. A couple of things that I want to adjust right away is, first of all, the thigh. For the Revenant Eye, the thighs here are basically just the frame with this little piece of armor on the front, but I want to swap those out with the thigh parts of the Griffin. The way that the Griffin uses the frame of the legs is very different from how the Revenant Eye does. So basically there's no thigh part of the frame, and so we're basically going to omit that part of the thigh, and this is going to help just bulk out this section of the overall silhouette of the build. Now it does use the same knee connection, but a little bit differently, and so if we still want to use this same knee armor on the front, the problem is that it's just not gonna quite reach. So you can get it in there to where it reaches up to the hole in there, but then plugging that into the lower leg, the part of the thigh armor and the part of the lower leg armor are just clashing. So basically we need the knee joint to be a little bit longer so that it can connect between the thigh and the lower leg there. So essentially we've got two different options. We either make these pegs on here, or one or both of them make these pegs longer, or inversely, where the pegs plug into, we make that whole system there longer. So basically we need to just build out that part a bit more and then just make a new hole through the extended plot plate, basically is what we're going to do. And I think that's probably going to be the better option. The thing about the lower leg, however, is that this armor piece is on the side and this part here, which is attached to the front of the knee, you know, fit together in a certain way that they look like this. If we extend this up, basically bring that whole knee joint up, it's bringing all this entire section up here as well. So it's going to change the overall look of the lower leg. If I keep bringing that up like that, it's going to look different. Basically something like that. It's just going to kind of change the look of the lower leg slightly by bringing that whole front section up a bit, which I'm fine with, I think. So what I think I'm going to do is work at both ends. I think in here it's just a simple matter of just adding a couple of millimeters of plot plate into there. So just cut a couple of pieces of plot plate, add those right down. And then the same thing with this one, just add a couple of layers of plot plate there into this section and just build that, stack that out a bit more, maybe about like 3-4 millimeters, something like that, and that should be enough. So all I've done basically is just make a couple of parts like this, stacks of plot plate, then with holes drilled in the middle, and added those into the areas where we need to be the top of the frame there for the lower leg and the bottom of the frame for the thigh. That's how they're gonna look once glued in place and then cleaned up a little bit. And let's go ahead and put this back together and see how it all looks. There we have it. Now we've got that connected in, and I think I'm gonna have to place something in here at the back just to kind of cover that up. The front of the knee joint is covered up here by this big armor piece here, but the back, it does look a little bit kind of empty here at the back, so we'll put something in there later, but just to kind of see how this is gonna look then on the kit. As you can see here in comparison, it doesn't necessarily add that much. I mean, essentially we added 6 millimeters roughly in height. I don't think that it's actually taking advantage of the full 6 millimeters, but we added a little bit to the height there, but actually the proportions overall between the unaltered and the altered thigh there are not really too different, but it does add some nice bulk into this section that otherwise is just kind of quite minimal there, so that's nice, I like that. But guys, I now find myself in a bit of a predicament because we have this part going out the back of the thigh, and I thought that would be a good place to use these parts here from the Grief, and I thought maybe we'll stick those here on the back, and that'll kind of be the end of it. That said, there are parts of the Griffin, like the claw part. Now there's claw parts for like originally go on the back of the arms and then on the front of the legs, and these parts, you know, have this kind of claw bit here at the end, which this part is fine, or you know, you could replace this with just like a hand or kind of whatever other kind of claw or weapon part you might want to stick at the end of there. But we've got these arm parts, and I was wanting to use these either on the back or on the front in some way, either like making them like the front skirts or something, or attached onto the back. One thing that I always liked about designs that you don't see very often, but like the Zaku F2000 is a good example of this, that has like the arms out the back. I always thought was a cool feature, especially for like space combat or something, you know, having arms that can hold a rifle to shoot out the back kind of makes sense in a way. It's kind of weird, but then I was thinking, what if we actually turn this thigh part the other way around and have it so that this part was facing to the front, and have it so that these massive claw arms are sticking out here on like the front at the top of the leg, something like that. It sounds pretty ridiculous, but I think it might actually be kind of interesting. So I'm willing to at least test it out. The only thing I need to do is just kind of go ahead and do the extension modification here for both the thighs, and then we can just kind of swap the parts around and we can see how it's gonna look. Let's try it. And all right, there it is. So with both legs, now with the extension, the thigh modification, and those arms added onto the front, I think that's looking pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with that. At first I was thinking they're gonna have to be like off to the side like that, because they can't go like straight down just because the knees there. I'd have to do like some more modification. It might be possible, but I actually kind of like them like that, so we can get our nice wide stance here and then have those right in the middle. I think that's gonna look really good, so very happy with that. Yeah, but now we need to work on the back side, because there is some more stuff that I'd like to use. So like I said, I do still want to use these guys here at the back as well. We still got the radome piece, which I think is going to be a good fit for just like right here up on top of the back, something like that. And the chest of the Revenant Eye, I think we'll probably make for a good back skirt. I think we can pretty easily make a way for that to fit onto the back there like that, and then probably use a connection piece to then plug these guys onto, so that they're sticking onto the back of there like that on both sides of the back skirt. So that will probably be what we'll use here for the back skirt. I think that'll look pretty good. Then we still have some other sections like these guys, which I was mentioning, I think could make like looking as some cool incom devices kind of thing. I'm still not sure about that. These guys and then these fins here like this. I had the idea to use these on the top of the shoulders, something like that, something kind of similar to the XS Gundam. I think that could be an interesting idea. Having them here like on the side skirts I think just doesn't really look all that good, just doesn't really make much sense. But adding them back onto the backpack kind of basically as they were in like a vertical position, that also doesn't look too bad either. So that could be something that we could go for. Or we could make it asymmetrical, where we've got like 2 fins here on the one side and then the radome off to the other side. That could look kind of interesting. I kind of like the idea of adding some asymmetry to it. As I'm figuring out the back part, the other thing that's going to be important to figure out is any kind of weaponization that I want to add to this. If I do want to add any weapons to it, at this point, I'm not entirely too sure, and I do have a lot of different options just in the MSG line. Nothing that's included with these, I mean, unless you count these sort of as like weapons, kind of, I guess maybe they could be. Or these parts like this, I'm not sure. These I thought about adding onto the front skirts instead of these like claw bits. To have these on there instead, that could be an option. I'm still not entirely sure about that. Let me play around with a few ideas and then we'll see what I can come up with. Alright, so after some careful planning and consideration and experimenting, here is how it's looking, and this is going to be about the end of our work in progress episode here for today. But I've gone ahead and installed the radome and one of the fin antennas here on the back, just with a couple of parts. Actually, I had to use a couple of Bandai parts here for this. I wanted it to be 100% Kotobukiya, but there was different Kotobukiya attachment parts, but these Bandai little connection pieces from a 30 minutes missions kit ended up being just kind of the easiest, most convenient way. The back skirt here, I've also used a couple of 30 minutes missions connection parts here just for attaching these kind of parts here at the back. Those are on ball joints so that those can move around fairly easily. They're going to be a bit touchy at the moment, but I'll glue these parts once everything's painted, but at least for the time being you guys can see how those are going to look out the back of there like that. Really liking how the sub arms are looking there at the front. And I used this piece here, which is part of the original feet of the Revenant Eye, and put it on top of this part just to make the foot look a little bit bulkier, to make the foot look a little bit more built out, not quite so framey there like that. So I basically just added that part onto the top of there, and that's how that looks. Just needs just a little bit more cleanup, but you guys can see kind of the difference between the two. I think it's the knee part from the Griffin. I'm going to add this part in here to the back of the knee joint, and that'll fill in that space right in there really nicely at the back of the knee joint. So that'll just kind of fill that in right there. That'll look nice. And then for the armaments and everything, so it's kind of interesting. Once I started to think about the armaments and stuff for this, that's when kind of the vision for the whole model overall kind of came together. So I'm going to be using this big massive cannon here. This is the Heavy Weapon Unit 17, I think it's called, like the revolving blast or something like that. This is one of those heavy weapon sets from Kotobukiya that you can get that like motor part that goes inside of there, which is just sold separately, and then that makes it so that the cannon will actually move back and forth like that. It'll automatically like piston action like that. I'm not going to bother with that, that's fine, but this is just going to be something that's just kind of held in this hand like that in like an inactive state. And so basically this is going to make this into like a sort of like space, very heavy artillery, like just cannon kind of mecha that's got this big massive cannon, the radome for targeting, and then it needs a shield as well, I thought. So I'm going to be using this as just MSG shield option parts, not mounted onto the arm, but held here by the sub arm on the front. So the sub arm is just going to be holding the shield kind of here in the front, and I did something kind of interesting with this one. So this is the shield that it's got like 4 of these pieces that are meant to just go kind of like that to be very wide, but I didn't really necessarily think that it needed to be that wide. I guess for like realistically, that probably would have made more sense, because then these parts can like separate out like that, and that probably would have made for like a better shield for like a long range like heavy cannon bombardment kind of mecha. But what I did instead is use the other set, and I'm just gonna have these onto the back like that just to make the shield more thick, and then also covers up all this empty space so the back of the shield otherwise just is all empty. But what I've gone ahead and done, I've already done it on this side, and just on this side I've not done it yet just so that I can show you guys, but it's basically cut out all the connection stuff on the inside so that I can glue this here, and then I can still get that range of movement in there. I don't know if I'm gonna bother really moving it much once it's painted, but at least the movement is still an option there for that. So these parts can rotate to the front there. It can basically be like a melee weapon, or alternatively it's just a shield. So the kind of thing where you could imagine like one subarm here holds the shield, the other subarm can just actually extend down and just grab onto the ground for like a third leg, sort of added support, and then both hands can operate the giant massive cannon that it has, which has multiple handles on it, so it could do like a two-handed grip. Anyway, it's the kind of thing that I'm not going to actually do with the kit, but it's the kind of thing that just based on what you can see and what you've got there with the build, you can imagine it that's how it works, right? Last thing is then also these parts here. These are just parts of the cannon left over, but I thought these would make just glued together like that, and then I'm gonna take two of the wheel parts from the Revenant Eyes feet. Need to modify them a little bit and glue them into the ends of this so that it looks like it's got like a cylindrical canister inside this rectangular just kind of housing here. I'm gonna cut off these connection bits on here, and then this is gonna plug right here onto the center of the back, and that is gonna be basically what's kind of looking like sort of like a generator or kind of a energy source for the massive cannon. And then from these holes here, I can run hoses into the generator. It's got like these hard points kind of all over the place. And I don't know if I'm gonna necessarily do like 4 hoses, because on this part there's 4 holes in there, but maybe just 2 or 3, maybe we'll see. But I thought that'll make for a cool look. Anyway, I know that's just a lot of talking on this one, guys, but just kind of explaining the thought process behind how the build is shaping up. I'm gonna go ahead and work on just kind of getting everything solidified. There's a lot of seam lines and mold lines and stuff to work on, so a lot of work right now just now that everything's kind of the placements, everything's all laid out, I just need to go in and get everything paint ready. Also gonna probably add a few more just Kotobukiya MSG option detail parts around here and there as well. So you guys will see that in the next work in progress. I'll show you guys how it's looking just pre-painting, and then we'll get into the painting in the next episode. But for now, guys, thank you so much for checking it out. Really happy with how this is shaping up. I think it's looking very cool. So hope you guys are excited to see more, and we'll get to that in the next episode. But of course, if you guys are looking for some Kotobukiya stuff, frame arms, or anything else from Kotobukiya, you guys can check the video description down below to USA Gundam Store. Got all sorts of stuff there for you guys to check out. I highly recommend it. I love the frame arms line. I'm so glad to be able to be working on one here with you guys. Until next time, guys, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye, guys.